Today we're going to talk about how to move and reconfigure your galley storage modules. If your first goal is simply to move your galley modules around, then all we're going to do is start off with the bottom brackets that are on the floor or going against the wall. And so you'll see one of two brackets. Our first one is this black one that you've got here. And then the other one that's a little bit more subtle is this silver elbow bracket here. So again, you'll either have those tying your whole galley setup down to the floor or to the wall behind it, depending on what your setup is, or I mean, some people even just put a couple of these tops on their gear slide. So in that case, you'd be tying it to the gear slide. But you'll always look for those brackets to release the module from the van framing. So here's how we do that. First thing you're going to need is your T-handle set. Now, we usually include a 4, 5, and a 6mm T-handle set. We like these ones because they have a little round top on there, and that allows you to come in at an angle as opposed to straight on without stripping some of these bolts. We're just going to go ahead and loosen these a little bit. So these bigger bolts here are going to be our bigger 6mm T-handle. I've removed my bolts from my bottom brackets that go on the floor or to the wall. That alone will allow you to reposition or completely remove the modules from the van. Now, if your goal is to completely reconfigure the drawer and the base and want to change the order of that layout, then we will go about disconnecting our one wide unit from the other one that's next to it. Okay, so here's how we do that. The first set of connection points that you need to be aware of is going to be either on your floor or your wall. So we're going to loosen these. This is going to allow us just to pull the entire galley setup away from the wall so that I can access some bolts behind here, okay? And so that's essentially what we're doing. We're just getting ready to loosen these. These smaller button heads are just going to be our little 4mm, okay? All right. And if you're unaware, just some language, we have these bolts that connect to this roll-in hardware underneath, okay? So you see that little silver piece down there? So that roll-in hardware will be tucked behind and is what's going to grab the threads from the bolt and kind of squeeze things tight. Okay, so now that I've got that done, I'm just going to pull this out a little bit. So that's really all it should need is like a good inch or two, okay? But if you have a 2-unit wide galley, which we call, this one unit, this your second unit, then you have some connection points that are actually connecting these two together. The reason we do that is that way we can keep the tops as flush as possible when we have them stacked next to each other. The other thing you should be aware of is that we have a top module, which you see here. So we have a single top, and then we have a base that we have. And so if you kind of peek on the side here from the camera, you'll see that there is a bolt head right there. If you go on that side, you'll see right here this bolt head. So that bolt is actually going through to the other side, which I mentioned we have that roll-in hardware. So that roll-in is catching that threads. So we have one here, we've got one up here, and then typically we do have some on the top. If you did have drawers and needed to access that to break the whole unit apart, simply open your drawer. And you've got these little slides right here. So basically, you'll pull up on this one, and then you'll pull down on the opposite one, on the opposite side of this drawer. And that allows the whole slide to detach. And now I can access some real important things. So again, we've got those real important holes there that I mentioned. So we've got 2 connection points here. One up here, one down here, and then 2 on the base as well, okay? And then we've also got some going vertical, okay? So when we go down, we connect the top to your base via that bolt right there. So we've got one of those on the front, and then we've got one of those on the back side, which is why we pulled the base away from the wall to begin with, okay? So first thing I'm gonna do is kind of like just loosen those ones. Those are a little easy. Since I've got this drawer out, I can just take my 5mm T-handle, and they just pull in and out, right? One important pro tip for you is pulling that bolt out can actually misalign the roll-in hardware that is in the base. So that becomes important when we reassemble and need those threads to line up. So to realign that roll-in, just poke your T-handle through there and make sure that's in alignment before reassembling. Boom, there's one. That's what those bolts look like. And then I'm going to come on the back side. And some of our T-handles actually have like an Allen on right here. So if I was able to access it, this way, I would actually not need to scoot this whole thing away from the wall. But I didn't think ahead and bring that tool, which is fine because most of you guys probably have these guys. All right, so got 2 of those bolts off. So those should be the only 2 connection points, those 2 bolts that connect our top to our base. Okay, so this whole top should now pop right off. If that's how we remove a top, again, you may have a couple connection points going in sideways like that way, and so just check on your setup to see if those are in place or not, and if they are, you would just take those out as well. So now I'll show you how to detach this base from the second unit. Okay, so I'm going to start off just by removing these front ones. Again, why we like these round tops is because I can come in at an angle like over here and turn this without stripping the bolt. So these round top Allen wrenches are pretty T-handles. Okay, so got one. You probably heard that little click. That was that roll-in piece of hardware falling down. Now I've got this one in place over here. And these bolt heads could go either way. It actually doesn't matter as long as you have a roll-in on the back side. Okay. There we go. So these are what these are the roll-ins I was mentioning that we can actually just slide right in. For each base, we should have 2 more of those bolts on the back side as well. So I am releasing that. So now my base should be free from the opposing base next to it. And we go from a 2 wide to a single wide galley. So now I can recombine and do different things as I need to. To put it all back together, we just do all of that in reverse.